Thank you for plugging into this Family Life News podcast, streaming issues-driven, family-focused news.
It's another edition of Real Answers, which comes your way Wednesdays during the noon report as we tackle the tough issues facing Christian families. Our guest is licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson, and today we're talking about the daily grind, how to get through, especially if you're in a difficult job or a hard career.
Definitely, Greg. And, let me start out by just throwing a few numbers at you here. According to some research that's been done by the Pew Research Center, they say, Greg, about 51% of people report a high level of satisfaction with their jobs overall. So this means roughly then 49%, give or take, percentage point for error there, of course, of workers are either just satisfied or to some degree unsatisfied with their jobs. And, we're going to focus in on that 49% of folks right now and offer ways of raising your job satisfaction with your career.
What are some of the elements that were taken into consideration with this research that you're quoting?
Well, it's a very interesting survey, and you can easily find it yourself by doing an internet search for job satisfaction statistics. They looked at relationship with coworkers, relationship with immediate management or supervisors, commute time, day-to-day tasks at work, amount of feedback received from employers, benefits provided by the employer, and opportunities for training, developing skills, and of course, salaries. These are all the things that they looked for in doing this research. The two categories that were the highest in this survey were relationship with coworkers and relationship with management and immediate supervisors at 67 and 62% reporting high levels of satisfaction.
So that highlights a need for good connections, feeling connected at work.
It does. It really does. And, Greg, relationship is such a huge indicator that it can often very effectively bring a person's job satisfaction to a higher level. Having a good relationship with coworkers is very important, but there's a few things I think that you need to be aware of. The first one is gossip. Do what you can do to avoid it. If you're listening to gossip, even though you're not necessarily passing it along, you are still contributing and encouraging others to gossip just by listening. So excuse yourself, if possible, from gossip conversations, and don't worry about what others will think of you if you do. Number two, avoid stealing time from your employer by, for example, taking longer breaks than you're allotted, or coming in chronically late, or making excuses to leave early. This is especially true for salaried employees who aren't necessarily as closely monitored with a punch card or, other ways of tracking their work hours. Number three, be very mindful about how you engage with coworkers outside of the workplace. This is something you really have to kind of take into consideration because you may or you may not want to socialize outside of work. With this one, there is, like I said, some variability as some people want to keep work and personal life very separate. However, if your employer offers office get-togethers or other sanctioned events, I think it's important to attend them to build that rapport, with your relationships with your coworkers as well as management. But again, the amount of casual socializing that you do on your own with coworkers when you're off the clock is really up to you. But just remember, avoid that gossip, be respectful, don't talk badly about your employer.
Those are great ways to encourage good work relationships with coworkers, with management. If you are the manager, that's important as well. What other advice can you offer to help with doing the actual work, carrying out the tasks that feel like a daily grind and sometimes feel very tedious?
I've worked in a variety of settings. My career history is kind of really all over the place. Despite deriving a very high level of satisfaction from these jobs, there were some tasks that were just very difficult. One thing that you can do to help with the tedious tasks and the tedious parts of your job is just look at them as if they're being assigned by God. Colossians 3:23 says to do your work as if you're doing it unto the Lord, not men, and therefore working at it with your whole being, your whole heart. In your attitude, turn the difficult tasks into acts of worship, and definitely pray and ask God to help you do that. The way you approach those difficult tasks will start to change. Another thing also, Greg, is to schedule in various activities through the week that you can look forward to. Like, for example, my wife and I, we go to a small group, like our church home group on Wednesdays. It's right in the middle of the week. It breaks up the work week nicely, gives us something to look forward to as well.
balancing your work life and the other parts of your life. One of the things that I hear about in human resources is vacation times. I know there's a lot of people that don't use vacation time or don't take all the time off that they're entitled to.
That's right, Greg. And, this was one of the research survey said was important to actually use it, even though, like you said, a fairly high percentage might not use it at all. About 62% state that it is very important to have paid time off. Make sure you're using it. We do need to refresh. We do need to recharge our batteries. And that in itself will actually allow us to be on our game and to really work to our best abilities when we feel refreshed. And it's not just our vacation time. It's also taking time during the week and on weekends to find an activity that can help you unplug and just kind of recharge your batteries as well.
I know that Americans, we identify highly with our careers. How does that impact job satisfaction?
Well, Greg, to be precise, about 39% of workers, so just under 40%, say that their jobs helps to shape their identities at an extremely or a very high level. Now, this statistic is higher among workers that have pursued college or graduate degrees, but this is something that I think holds more potential for us or helping us to become more satisfied. Make sure that and here's the thing, make sure that you don't over-identify with your career. Okay, get into the Word, know who you are based on what God says about you. And I'm not saying that jobs can't be part of your identity, but jobs and careers come and go. And these can change without notice. As a matter of fact, I have a very dear friend of mine 2 days ago was working at a university and lost his job without any notice. It's a complete mystery. But again, jobs can come and go. We don't always understand it. And then making sure that your full identity isn't wrapped up in your career is very important. Again, it's not that you can't use your career or your job to say, this is what I do, because that always comes up in conversation. But make sure your full identity is not just wrapped up in your career.
This is Real Answers, the Family Life News feature, when we tackle the tough topics that Christians face. The advice is from licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. Real Answers is one of our Wednesday features during the Noon Report on the radio and anytime 24/7 on our podcast page online. I'm Greg Gillespie, Family Life News.